Trent Oster.
Hi guys. So I'm still making this talk up as I go, so it should be entertaining. A celebration of game development in Edmonton was the topic. For those of you who know me, I have a really hard time being rah-rah and very positive. I'm usually very hard-cutting with my critique, so I'll try to be good about it. So one of the big topics we wanted to talk about was kind of the history of game development in Edmonton. Now, I can't speak to the history of game development in Edmonton. I can speak to my history of game development in Edmonton, and I can talk about how we got started. So we built a company called Finite Element Software in 1994. I finished my third year of comp sci, and I joined my older brother, who was an aerospace engineering grad, and a childhood friend named Marcel Zeschuk, who was an agriculture grad, which isn't really applicable, but it worked for us. And we made a truly horrible game. It was horrible. It was a 16-bit DOS game. It ran in 625K, so if you remember back in those days, you had 640, so you were like high-memming mouse drivers and everything in order to get it to work. But it ran, and we shipped it out shareware, and it made absolutely $0. But we made a bet. We made a bet at the beginning of the summer. The bet was, if we can make a game over the summer, we're going to go for it. We're going to make the big game. We're going to become professional game developers. So we started on a game that we called Metal Hive. And we loved that name. Oh, we loved it. Then became BioWare. In October '94, Greg Zeschuk has a cousin named Marcel Zeschuk, who I used to play with when I was like 12. They'd come down for the summer, we'd hang out. They got involved, and we basically set the company up, and we continued on the development of Metal Hive, which we were able to sign with Interplay Productions out of Irvine, California. We sent out 10 demos to 10 different publishers. We got 7 replies back with offers, and we got it down to 2 final companies. And we decided we were going to work with Interplay. Interplay told us that the Metal Hive name kind of sucked, and we were very sad. And then they suggested Shattered Steel, and we thought Shattered Steel was the worst name ever. But after saying it 7,000 times, we just didn't care anymore. So, after that, we got Shattered Steel out the door. It was entertaining. BioWare had hired Scott Gregg, who became lead programmer on Baldur's Gate. And they acqui-hired a Grand Prairie design team that was kind of building their own game. One of their principals was Cameron Topher, who's actually my current business partner in Beamdog. So Cam and his gang were doing this game thing, and they heard about these guys with BioWare doing something. They came down for an interview, and James Olen, the number 2 guy on the list, happened to have the car that would fit everybody. Now, James Olen owned a comic book store in high school, was the local GM for Star Wars gaming and for D&D. He was just perfect. So because his buddies needed a ride, he came down. Those people basically became the guts of the Baldur's Gate team and Baldur's Gate 2 team after that. Cassidy, Scott, and Cameron Topher, they were the guys behind MDK2. So it's kind of hilarious in that period where we really developed a lot of local talent. And I think in some ways, BioWare was really well served by a remote location. If you were good and you wanted to do game stuff, you had no options. You went to BioWare. BioWare 2001 plus. This is kind of the more modern era. Really, the company changed a lot. I mean, the bar on what we had to deliver went way up. It's like, okay, we need everything to work. We're going to make this Star Wars role-playing game. No, we're going to make this new IP that's all our own. We're going to roll with that. We were looking for experienced people, ready to hire, who were best in the world at what they did. We really kind of fell off on the local hiring. It kind of went up and down over the years. Some years we'd bring in a lot of local talent. Some years it wouldn't be so much. But we rode the company up to about 420 people here in Edmonton. So I kind of talked over that whole cycle and how BioWare managed to be a success. And BioWare, make no mistake, there was a lot of hard work and there was a lot of skilled people. But there was a lot of bullshit luck. You would not believe the volume of bullshit luck. First game, Blasteroids 3D, 16-bit game. Everybody was fighting with 16-bit. We didn't really have an advantage there. We were kind of the underdogs fighting our way up. We kind of made it up as we went along, and our game was not competitive with what anybody else was doing. The next game, Shattered Steel, or Metal Hive, depending on which era you look at it, 32-bit extended DOS. The entire game industry had to throw out everything they knew from coding 16-bit stuff and learn how to work with DOS 4GW, 32-bit DOS, and the Wacom 10.5 compiler that had absolutely no debugging tools whatsoever. So we were able to jump in kind of at this technology shift, where all the other experienced game developers on the planet were radically disadvantaged. We were able to come in essentially on par. Next game, Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate actually began as an internal game called Battleground Infinity. It was a not great idea, and it was basically a hacked direct draw demo where you could walk a character around and you could smite skeletons, and that was actually the word, it said smite. You would mouse over it, it would say smite, you would smite it and it would go, raw, and the skeleton would die. The neat thing about it is because it was a direct draw thing, we were able to do 16-bit color in a time when everything else was 256 color. So it looked like it had this crazy color depth that nobody else was doing. So again, we sent out the demo to 10 publishers like we did with Shattered Steel, and we got 10 refusals. RPGs are dead, nobody wants to do an RPG, that stuff's over, you guys should be doing shooter stuff. Or I'm trying to remember, no, that was the RTS era. They wanted us to do RTSs. So our producer on Shattered Steel was this fellow named Fergus Urquhart. Fergus happened to be starting to lead a division at Interplay called Black Owl Studios. Fergus looked at what we were doing and said, you know what? We get the D&D license. You took D&D and you put this Battleground Infinity thing together, that would be awesome. So again, luck. We happened to be at the right place at the right time with the right partner that had the license that our producer saw, made the connection, and then Fergus took that concept, went to the marketing people, convinced the marketing people, and then used the marketing people to convince the CEO to sign up the game they had previously refused. They signed up Baldur's Gate, and I think we were supposed to get it done in like 2 years. It took us almost 3. And they were very unhappy about how long it was taking, but I think the term pot committed comes to mind. They weren't doing so well in the economic side, so they needed it. They needed to ship the game. So we shipped it. Right after Baldur's Gate, we rolled into Baldur's Gate 2. I started work on Neverwinter Nights, actually during Baldur's Gate 1. And then we did MDK 2, which was our first console title. We did that on the Dreamcast, which was, again, another new opportunity. Dreamcast was a totally new console. No other people had played with it. We got the dev kits at the same time everybody else on the planet. It really kind of helped us to stay on par with everybody else. So I guess what I'm kind of touching at, where we were really successful at BioWare was when we were able to take advantage of hardware transitions or major industry cycles. So if you look at the industry as a whole, I mean, you've got kind of these cycles. You've got PC. I put 1993 to 2002 because that's what I consider the era of retail box. The era of retail box, you needed a publisher. You jump in, you needed somebody to make the box, put the box on a shelf, market the box, test the box for you, take care of all of it. I think that era is over. PlayStation, Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, Xbox One, or Xbox, Steam 2003 and on, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, iPhone. iPhone was huge. It was just this huge disruption. Like, we make a good portion of our revenue from iPad sales. The iPad didn't exist 6 years ago. So in 6 years, we built our business on a platform that didn't exist. And then now we've got PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So every period, there's a cycle. It's gotten a little longer with the console cycle lately, but there's always something new coming along, and there's always some new angle that you can chase down. So this is kind of a graph of basically how industries go. Typically, there's this embryonic stage, which is like the Wild West. It was when the iPhone first launched, and dude launched like Fart App, and he made tons of money with Fart App. The embryonic stage is offensive because people can make a lot of money with really crappy things, but it's really exciting because it gets all these people motivated to come rolling in. And you hit the growth stage, where everybody shows up in town with their 6 guns out, and they're like, we're gonna make a game, it's gonna be awesome, and everybody's successful, and everything's going, and it's a lot of fun. Then there's this kind of industry shakeout, where some of the bigger players with their higher production quality, their better art teams, their bigger art teams roll in and it starts consolidating. And then maturity is all about the consolidation, and decline is typically, in the game industry it's kind of weird, decline only typically happens when you make it happen. So Xbox 360 sales start crashing when the Xbox 360 or Xbox One is announced. See, that naming scheme still screws me up. What is wrong with Xbox? Like, just give it common names. So basically, we are a cyclical industry, and every cycle is an opportunity for a new group to jump in and gain experience. I was kind of thinking about it on my drive here this morning, and I was like, I'm a professional game developer. I've been developing games and getting paid for that I've been a game developer for almost 21 years now. I've been getting paid for about 18 of those, because the first 3 years we just didn't pay ourselves. That's how we made Shattered Steel. That's how we got the deal signed. We just didn't pay ourselves. I guess the point I would make is that there are no professionals. We're all frauds. We're all just amateur guys hacking away, and there's nothing magical about it. Even in huge, massive studios, guys leading 150, 200 person projects, we're making it up as we go, and we always will. And that's kind of what's exciting about the game industry. There's no absolute right way to do it. There's about 746 slightly wrong ways of doing it, and all of them will kind of work. Some of them lead to fiery team death and horrible, horrible outcomes, but most of them are actually, they're pretty reasonable. So looking back, I mean, the most recent disruption I can point at from an industry standpoint was the iPhone. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody saw the iPhone. Hey, like, I think the best quote I heard was from the guys over at BlackBerry. It's like, who wants a computer in your pocket? That makes no sense. They'll never sell any of those. It's like, suddenly BlackBerry's market position makes a lot of sense. So I'm just going to keep tapping until it. There we go. So, Bioware number 2, Bioware number 3. Should we do that again? Duplicate that success? I actually had no here. I put maybe because I'm trying to be optimistic. The game industry has changed, and it's changed a lot in the 20 years that I've been involved. And honestly, it's changed for the better. If you've never had to deal with the Wacom compiler and DOS4GW, you have saved yourself. It's like 7 levels of hell, man. That is horrible. Printf debugging is your friend, we'll say that much. So, if console titles, if AAA, big PC, big console titles, I think of them like blockbuster movies. There's a huge cash spend into it, there's a huge marketing spend, the stars align and you do the safe thing and you execute it, you could get a massive hit. But the orders of magnitude you're playing with there are huge. And if you do not hit, like we're talking games that have to sell 5-6 million copies just to break even. It's terrifying to me. I think the place that we play in, kind of the iTunes App Store, Steam, Google Play, it's really more like TV. It's longer run entertainment that can be it can be more engaging because it can run in a longer format, because we don't have to create it to this crazy blockbuster level of quality in every second. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in this space. I call it the AA or the AA plus space, depending on which day of the week it is. Sometimes plus sounds better, sometimes not. So the big question of Edmonton, and Edmonton is a place to make games. I mean, if you honestly look back at the BioWare story, why Edmonton? And the answer is because Greg and Ray and Og lived here and they had some money. And Greg had a basement that we could set up for in a while. And then we went above the high-level diner, or beside the high-level diner above a place called the Sugar Bowl. And it was this crazy office. Like, it's even more low rent than my current Beamdog offices, which is saying quite a bit. So let's look at some other cities. Montreal. Now, for those of you who don't know, Montreal has a massive game subsidy. They will pay 37.5% of the salaries of art staff that work on video games there. It's huge. They have a couple of huge studios, mainly because of those subsidies, and they have a couple of huge colleges that are feeding because of those subsidies. Vancouver also has a subsidy, 17.5% of salary, as well as an investor in a company in Vancouver, you're allowed a 30% tax break. So it's really stacking it pretty good. They've got huge studios out there, established art teams. I look at Edmonton, we've got no subsidies that are direct. I mean, on the programming side, you can use the SRED, shred we call it. It allows you to write off some of your programming costs. We've got one large studio, which is BioWare, which I'm not totally sure on the head count there. It's about 300, 320, I think. We've got a number of schools. We've got the U of A, Edmonton Digital Arts College, NAIT, there's Pixel Blue, there's a couple others as well. So the subsidies is a big difference. We've got one large studio, whereas the other places have multiple large studios. And then we've also got schools. So what's the solution? Now, I don't know about you guys, but subsidies, I think they're ridiculous. You're basically creating a false economy. Now, the fact that there's a subsidy in Montreal and a subsidy in Vancouver, and Ontario has a subsidy now, I don't like that. I don't like it at all. I don't want to do a subsidy in Edmonton, but I would like us to have a fair playing field. I'm not totally sure how to do that. It's one of the reasons I don't get involved with government stuff. I think the right way to do it is to do it how we did it, which is, let's just make it happen. We started BioWare with the question of how hard could this possibly be? And the answer is, oh my God, it's way harder than we thought it was. But at the end, it was doable. And every game we tackled with that same very naive thought pattern. How hard could this possibly? Oh God, the pain! So, what I would suggest to people, like when I started making games, there was nothing. There was no game jam. 3D Studio Max didn't exist. I was using 3D Studio Rev 3, which was, you could make spheres and cylinders, and you could fly cylinders around, and that was about it. It really did not do much. The compilers today, the platforms, the ease of getting onto a platform. So, find an opportunity. Jump into something. A game jam. I look at game jam as, I think they're insane. Because 48 hours, I can't even write a design doc in 48 hours. But in 48 hours, you can meet a team of other people who are pretty jazzed about video games, and you can bash away on something. And the tools today are amazing. I mean, I look at Unity, I look at Unreal. You're starting with a game engine that's basically what we had about 8 months from ship on any of the games we worked at BioWare. Because we'd spend the first 2 or 3 years working on stuff, and it was always broken, always horribly broken, and the designers couldn't create content, and stuff would be getting deleted, and you'd load a bad build. That's where you're starting. So it's just this huge kind of opportunity. So Game Jam, you got Startup Edmonton, you got Demo Camp, demoing all the local kind of software setups. You got some of the schools locally are doing Keystone projects where you can get together with a group, build something amazing. Joining a mod team. At Beamdog right now, we employ 19 full-time people and we have 16 contractors. Those 16 contractors are located all over the world. They are Baldur's Gate modders. We've hired them out of the community. About half of them are technical designers, and the other half are QA. And we hired them out of the community because they're actually the most knowledgeable guys on the video game, on Baldur's Gate and how it works. In some places, they've told us how things work. And we're like, really? I looked at the code and it totally didn't make sense to me. Unreal 4 is free. That blows my mind. I was talking, a friend of mine is actually the VP of licensing at Epic, and I was like, do you hate your job? You're the VP of licensing, don't you get paid for licensing? He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. We take 5% on the back end, and for every title that I think it's up to 100K, they don't take anything. So the first 100K is free. After that, they take 5%. If you thought about the cost, like the amount of money they've spent developing Unreal, and they're asking for 5% on the back end, I'm like, let's back up the truck, load this puppy in and get out of here before anybody shows up. Because I figured it out, I've been involved with the development of 5 separate engines, and each engine was roughly about 3 times to 4 times as expensive as the one previous to that. I would estimate today to develop an Unreal spec capable engine at about $100 million, and probably about a 4-year burn on it. So, build something. It can't be worse than Blastroids 3D. Because, I'm going to tell you a secret. Blastroids 3D, all the sound effects were done by me and a microphone. Pew, pew. That was it. That was an explosion. It was horrible. I'm serious, really, really bad. Development's really easier than it's ever been. Like, the tools are amazing. And you can pull stuff down from anywhere. I mean, even just buying a new computer, it's got an editing tool for editing audio that's orders of magnitude better than what we had. I did all the artwork for Blastroids 3D using Corel Photo Paint. There was an element of self-hatred at the end of that. So my thought, you learn how to do things by doing them. It's great to theorize about how things might happen, and theory will get you about 50% of the way there. When you start making something, you get punched in the face, and you realize how horrible it is, and then you know how to make it better. And then you know how to make it better and better and better, and it just keeps rolling on. So I think that's how we make Edmonton into a game city. We don't rely on subsidies, we don't rely on artificial constructs, we just do it. We just make games and make something awesome. So the last part, I wanted to talk a bit about the IGDA, the International Game Developers Association. So I was actually elected to the board. I am a member of a 6-person board at the moment. We direct the IGDA worldwide. The reason I got involved is I was mad. I do that sometimes. I get mad. I was mad because there was a whole bunch of jerks that were in the media that were making gaming look ridiculous. Some of them were using the hashtag Gamergate. There was other stuff. Ultimately, it comes down to, I think video game people are pretty awesome. I like making games for people who are entertained by them. And I like interacting with our audience, because I think our audience is pretty amazing. I don't want media to favor the jerks over the reality. So I ran for a board seat basically saying, I want to be an advocate. I want to speak for game developers, and I want to speak for game players. And I want to say, you know what, we're amazing, awesome people. We're gender inclusive. You talk to any guys who work at a game studio, the idea of bringing more women into the studio, they're like, yes, that would be grand. Then we wouldn't have to have Dave Gator write women, because Dave actually writes most of the women at BioWare. But he's phenomenal at it. The joke was we had, at the time, there was four writers, 2 female, 2 male, and that Cheryl wrote male guys better than Dave, and Dave wrote women better than Cheryl. But game developers as a whole want to make games that they want to play. And I think having more women game developers allows us to make games that more women will want to play. Or at least you can tell a group of guys when they're doing something really dumb. They're like, so we made this thing and it does this thing, and they're like, that is the dumbest feature ever. Guys would be like, really? I like it. It's kind of 2 to 3 minutes of convincing and boom, bad feature X just got killed, it's gone, and the game suddenly became way better. So the IGDA, kind of the biggest things we're pursuing right now is inclusion. We want to wipe out any kind of discrimination, gender or racial discrimination in the industry. And just be a happy community of people who love games. And that's kind of our focus. So to join the IGDA, you can get an individual membership for $48. You get a student membership for $30. I think there's a unemployed membership for like $25. It's neat. It's a good way to meet a lot of people and to connect up with a lot of people. And it really allows you to get kind of a perspective outside of Edmonton. Because we used to laugh about it at BioWare. We'd be like this, we're like this satellite. We're doing our thing, and it always happened about the same time every year. We were like, we are so awesome. This is great. Our game's getting ready for E3. It's going to be great. We're going to do this demo. It's going to blow people away. GDC, the Game Developers Conference, happens in March. E3 was happening usually in May. So we'd be all excited because we're putting together this kick-ass demo for the latest game. And we'd go down to GDC where there'd be talks, and we'd attend. There was usually 2 talks a year that totally kicked our ass. And we would come back thinking, we are slime, we are so worthless. The games we create are pitiful, pitiful creations. Those guys down there are so much more awesome than us. So we'd get scared, and we'd work our butts off, and we'd go down to E3 with something even better than we had planned. And that, being able to just go in and touch base and see what other people were working on, that was amazing for us. So I would say if you get a chance, try to attend a GDC, try to go to some of the talks. I mean, even if you just hang out in the expo, it's kind of a cool thing to do. It's down in San Francisco, it's a little pricey. The full passes are pretty pricey. IGDA will sponsor, they have IGDA scholars, where people who are in university can actually qualify for like sponsorship and so on. But it's actually a pretty cool setup. So if I were to kind of summarize my talk, if anybody asks you, that Trent guy, what did he talk about? I would say the big thing is just make something. Your first 20, 30 attempts at something are going to suck. By attempt number 40, you're going to be getting pretty good at it. By the 500th piece of art you've created, you'll understand at a whole new level why the 10th one you created was so horrible. But you're going to get good, and you're going to get good fast. And the other thing you can do, find other people to work with. I was a 3D modeler for a period. I started as a programmer, I became a 3D artist for like close to 10 years, and I led projects after that. Best thing that happened to me as a 3D modeler, I went into Cassidy Scott's office, I sat down at his desk and I said, I'm gonna watch you work for 2 days. I actually wound up grabbing my computer and moving it into his office, and I camped him for like 3 months. And I just lifted every technique I saw him using, and he showed me how many things I was doing just in a boneheaded way or I wasn't doing right. And I showed him things, which blew my mind because he was way better than I was, but he learned from me. The other thing I would say is that ideas, we had this big debate at Electronic Arts between the management and the development side. The management guys were like, it's ideas. We need the next $1 billion idea. It's all about the $1 billion idea. All the guys on the development side who were coming up with the ideas and making the ideas said, ideas are table stakes. Everybody's got great ideas. It's all about execution. It's all about what you build around that great idea. So don't be scared about somebody scooping your idea and doing it better than you. If it's a great idea, you're seeing something amazing in your head, when you describe that idea to somebody else, they'll see something different. And if they go off and steal your idea and they're building their own thing, it'll diverge in just a crazy extent. So talk to people about your idea. They'll tell you ways to make it better. Build something, get together with people, and put it in the hands of people. We had a really bad time with that at Bioware, where we just kept it close and kept it close, and we didn't want to show it to anybody because it was kind of buggy and it kind of sucked. But when you show it to people, one, their amazement at it is just, it's awesome. They're like, hey, this is really cool, and you get pumped up by it. And then they start telling you all the things that suck about it, and then you feel like you're horrible. But they're telling you how to make it better. And games get better by people playing them and telling you how to make them get better. Because you get blind. After a couple of years of looking at something, you just can't see it yourself. So go out there, make something, get it in the hands of people, and listen to the feedback and just iterate on it. You're not going to set the world on fire the first iteration. I mean, Blasteroids 3D wasn't anything to write home about. Shattered Steel wasn't a great commercial success. Baldur's Gate, we just happened to line up the planets and we got lucky with it. We put in a lot of hard work, and that built a company that has stood for the last, 17, 18 years now. It can happen again. It can happen again by people building things. So let's build something. Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions?
I'm done, microphone down. Oh yeah, there's that question thing. Sometimes people like to ask questions. In the back there.
I was just wondering, when you built your company, what kind of core competencies that you built the company on? Like, what kind of values did you build the company out of?
I totally heard about 1/3 of that.
I'm just wondering what kind of core competencies your company is built on. Like, what does your company value?
Our company, Beamdog right now, or previously?
Previously.
So previously, Baldur's Gate was BioWare, as you saw, was my older brother who was an aerospace engineer. I taught him how to program the Christmas before we started the company. An agriculture grad, who we're still not sure about that one. And me, who's the comp sci dropout. So if I were to set up a company today, or even just a game jam gang, I would have 2 of each area. I'd have 2 programmers, I'd have 2 artists, and I'd have 2 people who I would expect them to have some kind of programming background and have them focus more on the designer side. The reason I say 2 in each area is when you get 1 person, you get some brilliance. But with 1 person, you get all the madness. With 2 people, you get all the brilliance and none of the madness. You can cancel the madness out. And that is, you just cannot underestimate the madness that can be created. So start small, just be a fun group, build something in your spare time, but have some redundancy in some areas. If there's only 1 guy doing something and he has a helmet fire, there's nothing you can do. You can just stand back and watch him pull his hair out. If you've got 2 people, somebody else can at least say soothing technical words at the right moment to kind of calm them down. For Beamdog right now, we're crusty old men. We don't have crunch time in us anymore. We just can't handle that. Like, the idea of working past 7 at night, just kind of, oh man. So we value this, we're the slow race. We're running a marathon. We're looking at our team as people who are really professional, don't require a lot of direction, and can keep a steady pace. And if somebody's going to do crunch, we'll try and talk them out of it, because it doesn't pay off. There was another question right at the back there.
Yeah, I came in late to getting into this. Is there anywhere we can get a copy of this presentation?
That I totally don't know. I can share it up. It's not like brilliant or anything. I'll post it. I'll post it off my blog. I've got trentoster.com because I'm vain. So I'll post it off there. Any other questions? It's in the back.
Yeah, you mentioned how the iPhone had changed the industry. I want to know if you could give your thoughts on how in-app purchases have either changed things for good or worse.
So, in-app purchases. We have some in-app purchases in Baldur's Gate. We use that to cut the price so that we could drive the price on tablet platforms down to $10. So we have additional content that is included in the PC version that you can purchase on iPad and Android for extra money. I think that's content for dollars. I think that's okay. I was working on a free-to-play concept at the Beamdog office. Cody was one of our programmers. He's up there. And I killed it. I killed it after going to GDC. I went to GDC and I met a friend of mine who works for Big Fish. And he showed me the thing they're working on. And he talked about how their data science team was working on how to optimize their monetization cycle and compulsion loops. And I don't want to make compulsion loops. I don't want to make monetization engines. I want to make games. I want to make entertainment. And we may be in the wrong boat, but we're going to continue to chase this premium title thing. That's where I feel comfortable. I can build a product that has good value, good entertainment value. If you're willing to spend $6 an hour to go to a movie, say it's a 2-hour movie, costs $12, $6 an hour for entertainment. If I can do a video game that's $1 an hour for entertainment, I figure that's a pretty good value. And I think I can make $1 per hour that's going to be engaging. It's going to be entertaining. In-app transactions, I think, can be done well. Hearthstone is an example I'll reference. They got me to spend money, and they weren't holding a gun in my head. Clash of Clans, Boom Beach, they have not got me to spend money. And they have held a gun in my head, and I've walked away. And I believe the majority of people will walk away. So I think we're going to see free-to-play is going to get reinvented. And DLC, I think, will continue to happen, but it will continue to happen longer term with content that is valuable. And ultimately, it's the audience. The audience speaks with their wallets. When the audience says, this is great and we love it, it happens. When the audience says, I don't like that and I'm not going to buy it, that stuff dries up and dies quicker than you can imagine. Any other questions? Right at the back there.
You mentioned that the industry sort of works in cycles and that every so often there's a shakeup that kind of defines a new cycle. What would you say, or what do you expect to be sort of the next shakeup that's going to start off the next cycle? Do you think it's in the VR area with Oculus Rift and stuff? Or?
This was the GDC of game engines and VR. If you went to the Game Developers Conference this year, everybody and their dog had their VR headset, and they were stumbling around, bonking into things. I like VR. I like the concept of it. It just doesn't, it feels half-baked still. If I were a startup right now and I had this fun idea, the only way I would chase VR or AR is if I could get somebody else's money, and a lot of it, and spend it in a frivolous manner until the half-bakedness goes away. So, at this moment, I don't see the next big thing on the horizon. I think mobile is still doing well. There's a ton of competition, but it's still doing well. Marketing is probably the most terrifying thing at the moment, trying to actually get people aware of the game that you made. I think, rather than VR, I think augmented reality is going to be a bigger thing, but I don't think it's going to be a bigger thing in the game space immediately. And I mean, at this moment, if I were to start up a new company and say, we are going to do this new amazing thing, I'd probably do what we're doing. Focus on Steam, focus on iOS and Android. Any other questions? Yes?
Okay, so with what you said that you didn't kill yourselves for the first 3 years, I was just wondering how you guys got by.
So my brother lived with my mom. Marcel lived with his parents, and I lived with my girlfriend. I was like this total mooch boyfriend. It's okay, I married her, so. I don't know if that's okay or not. Maybe it got worse over time. I quit freeloading after a while, I'll say that. But I wouldn't encourage anybody to do that. 3 years, it's too long, you can't handle it.
But did you guys have part-time jobs or anything?
No, we just starved. We actually started paying ourselves $500 a month, and we were like, we're flush, man. We can buy frozen pizzas. And we bought a pizza oven, and it was great. And my brother got mad, and he threw a shoe at me, and it hit the pizza oven, and the pizza oven broke. There's much sadness on it. Any other questions? Yes, in the back.
What are your thoughts on like cloud gaming, and does it make a big impact for games?
Cloud gaming. So there's this cloud word that gets used a lot that describes a whole lot of big things. So what I'll talk about is kind of the on live kind of thing, if that's what you're getting at. So on live was a service basically, it grabs your input, it jams the input to a computer on the internet computer renders out the game, gets the game, compresses the video, and bombs it to your computer and displays it to you. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really twitchy on interface stuff. And we were playing with it in the office. And anything above about 10 milliseconds in lag, you can feel from a mouse cursor control input standpoint. Mouse cursor you can hide, you can just hide that stuff local, and you can just bomb actions over the internet. I don't think we're there. I think cloud gaming will work for Facebook games. It will work for for games that are able to tolerate high latency. Anything that's lower latency, that requires a lot of feedback, it's not there yet. And honestly, I don't see a time when our latency will be low enough to make that actually playable. My older brother works at NVIDIA, and they've got this crazy server stack that they can run multiple instances of a game on one machine and have it rendering out, and it's got hardware compressing the videos and everything. If you're in the same city, it's playable. In another city, it's not there yet. And I don't foresee when it will get there. But like cloud is such a big word, and it fits into so many things. I'd say Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition is a cloud game because we have a matching service that's on the internet that connects players together and has data in it, so cloud's a big word. Any other questions? Yes?
What do you think about the relaxed support for mods instead of just for AAA games? Because you can see just less and less modifications to those games.
Steam just made it so that you can pay money for mods. Well, and beyond that, they're giving a cut to the developers. So it's basically saying, so developer guy, you can make this game, and if you release some of your tools, some other people could make something, say, like Counter-Strike, and you could pull some percentage on that. Expect mod tools to get a heck of a lot better. Game developers are like, there's free money? So I'm personally, I think modding is amazing. I mean, that was the hiring pipeline at BioWare for technical designers. It's like, so you want to work at BioWare? Well, let's see your Neverwinter Nights module. Oh, you don't have one? Well, go buy Neverwinter, make yourself a module, and send that in, and let's look at that. And we hired Yaron Jacobs out of Israel. We hired Georg Zoller out of Germany because they did stuff in mods that our guys looked at and said, I can't do that. I don't know how you did that. Guy's amazing. You should totally work here. So we flew him over and he worked there. So I think mod support is going to come back and come back pretty hard. And I'm personally jazzed about mod support. I mean, with our work on the Baldur's Gate stuff, we just continue to kind of support the mod guys and open stuff up as much as we can. I think everything we work on going forward, we'll just keep doing that more and more. Yep.
Also, how much support would you have for mods? Like, for a game, what extent would you support mods? Like,
I think
would it be custom maps?
I think custom maps, custom art models, getting everything in game. I mean, everybody's got to see that obligatory, look, there's a penis in my game. It's running around. That's the first mod actually the first mod is naked. Naked people everywhere. And then somebody creates a penis that runs around. But level art, character art, custom scenario building, I think all of those should be supported. To me, that's what modding's all about. There was a question over in the back there.
Probably the last question.
Okay. Yep.
You discussed the hardware cycle and how that impacted the technical aspect of game development, especially programming. Does it have a similar impact on the artistic side, like your writers, your art direction at all, or is that more of an evergreen and skill for yourself?
It impacted the writers probably the least. It impacted the artists, in some cases more than the programmers. Because there was a transition there where you jump from doing PC development to Xbox development. Suddenly you were into the world of shaders, where everything before that was hardware transform and lighting. So your artists suddenly had to learn how to work with, instead of just painting a diffuse texture, I now have to do a spec map, I have to do a diffuse map, I have to do this. So every hardware cycle, the requirement for the quality of the content just keeps ratcheting up. The skills required on the art side become even more specialized. So art gets hit every cycle, but a great artist is a great artist. You can train them on the new tools. It's just like, you know how to use a screwdriver. Well, this is a Phillips, this is a flathead. A good artist can just transition. Good programmer, it's the same stuff. Somebody just scrambled the way things work. And especially if it was like PlayStation 2, they had these Vertex units. No, PlayStation 2. There was no debugging on them. It was basically black magic to write the shader, to write the little micro programs that ran on them. So you had one guy who you basically, Cthulhu-like, you agreed to send him to become mad. And then he would go off and become mad and solve the problem. And then hopefully he recovered at some point, or he moved to another company. So you just pick the right people to sacrifice to the good. And I guess that's it for questions. Sorry, Matt.